So you think you're crazy. Reassurances concerning everyday hangups. This reading is for Mara, who most certainly isn't crazy for trying to survive in a world gone mad. Introduction. This is a book of reassurance for those who are curious about their behavior, but do not feel their concern warrants a visit to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. It's not a substitute for counseling or therapy. It's also not a textbook on abnormal behavior or personality theory. The author is a registered psychologist with extensive experience in individual and group therapy and marriage and family counseling. He's taught psychology and human relations since 1957 and has authored other books on human behavior, which are available from the Pauper Press. It is hoped that these pages will help you be better able to understand, realize, and apply Ralph Waldo Emerson's advice. Make the most of yourself. That's all there is of you. Sign the author. Chapter 1. So you think you're crazy. We're all crazy. Ada feels uncomfortable on elevators. Alma can't go through a revolving door. Andy locks his front door, then tries it. Not once, but several times to be sure it's locked, when once or twice would have been enough. Al always sits in the corner at parties and prefers booths or tables against the wall, or in corners of restaurants. Anne always sits near exits in theaters and on airplanes. Abby has 2 drinks whenever she flies on vacation. Amy blushes and gets a little choked up whenever someone is attentive to her and shows her affection. Arthur has great difficulty telling anyone he likes how he feels. He'll send a gift or a card, write a brief note, and assume the other person understands. All these behaviors are typical of those shared by the vast majority of people. Because none of the people described is going or has gone to a psychiatrist or psychologist, he has no history of mental illness. These people fall into a great middle area of behavior called normal. If they went to an extreme, any of the above behaviors would be considered abnormal. If behavior interferes with daily living or interferes with or hurts others, or violates a law, it would also be considered abnormal. How many times have you asked yourself if your behavior at a given moment was abnormal? Most of us have such thoughts from time to time. Some of us worry about it, but we don't feel it's bad enough to consult a psychiatrist or psychologist. We're either afraid to ask. After all, the psychiatrist may find we're really crazy, and then what? Or we figure, and rightly so, that everyone's a little crazy and we probably aren't that mixed up. Sometimes the question, am I crazy? Recurs, and there's a sneaky feeling that you're the only person in the whole world who feels so nervous, afraid, lonely, guilty, or upset. It's like the old spiritual. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. To feel down, you have to let yourself feel down. You also have to let yourself down. It's a choice. Getting upset or depressed is like a child's flashcard game. You're confronted with 2 simple cards to choose from: right, wrong. If you feel that what you're doing is wrong for you, you've made the first choice. Every time you say or do anything, you're making a choice. You choose what to say, and you can choose how you say it. Tone of voice, choice of words, speed of delivery, eye contact, gestures, and posture. Most people are unaware of how they look and sound. The only way you are going to find out about this important aspect of your behavior is to ask someone you trust and feel safe with. Such a trusted friend is a contact partner or change agent. Everyone should have such a partner. He or she can be a husband or wife, brother or sister, relative, friend or neighbor, clergyman or teacher. What you do is to contract with that person to help check you and out of a given habit, attitude, or behavior you would like to change or measure. In exchange for this, you agree to give your partner feedback about something he or she wants to check or change. Most of us worry about things that never happen. And we also worry about the same old trivia day after day. Check yourself right now. The thoughts that nag at you, especially late at night, are the same things that nagged at you yesterday or last week. Chances are they'll be around tomorrow. Check them out again tomorrow and see if this isn't true. Some of us worry too much. We worry long before, during, and then after a problem arises. This is needless anxiety. Worrying about a bill doesn't give you a discount. It costs exactly the same, to the penny, whether you worry about it or not. And you don't get a discount for postponing it either. Many worriers keep putting off doing things. They find bills depressing, so they stick them somewhere out of sight. Foolish. Better to process them through and get rid of them. That way they're not around to bother you, and it's impossible for them to accumulate. Let's face it, the wealthiest person in the world would be depressed if he opened a desk drawer and found it full of bills. Through these pages, it is hoped you can get to know yourself better. You're quite a complicated piece of machinery, you know? You got a brain that operates more efficiently than any computer we've ever been able to design. It does more processing on more levels every second than anything man has ever produced. Computers can multiply and divide figures faster, but that's a simple mechanical function. Computers can scan data and solve problems too, but not with the same judgment you have. Computers can't feel, and feelings influence decisions, just as they influence, and sometimes cause or control, behavior. How you feel about a situation or person is every bit as important as what you think. Feelings are facts. They are neither right nor wrong. They just are. Behavior is complex. It often has not one, but several, sometimes many causes. And there are degrees of behavior, just as there are degrees of temperature. Being happy isn't a permanent state of ecstasy joy any more than being unhappy is a continuous deep depression. Happiness and unhappiness are relative. Zen Buddhists teach that you can find a quiet space, a still point, in the midst of confusion and tragedy. It's like the eye of the hurricane. The winds can blow at a furious rate around the center, but in the very middle, it's quiet. You can't be happy all the time, or unhappy all the time, any more than a hurricane can rage eternally. It does blow itself out. Emotions are somewhat similar storms of mood. If you know the signs, within yourself and within those you interact with, you'll be able to weather the storms. In fact, you can shorten them, eventually eliminate them. This is not to say that the emotions disappear, for that isn't possible, and you wouldn't want to do that anyway. Emotions serve a very real purpose. The negative, destructive emotions can and should be vented and neutralized. Doing so means no innocent bystander is going to be victimized by your leftover negative feelings, irritation, boredom, frustration, anger, guilt. Emotions are like flypaper, hard to get rid of. You have to stick them onto somebody or something, a thrown dish, driving like a spoiled kid, a nasty remark, etc. And the secret is to get rid of them with the least hurt to yourself and to others. How? It's always best to tell it like it is, as far as your own innermost feelings are concerned. For example, I'm angry. I'm not sure why, but I'm really upset, and I don't want to feel this way. A big red traffic light goes on when you say this. Everyone around you knows how you feel. They don't feel guilty or defensive yet because they're not sure what they did to cause your anxiety. Next, you talk. A 50-50 interaction to get the feelings out. In most cases, you'll find that doing this causes several good things to happen. You are better understood. You understand your own behavior better. You are drawn closer to those who have felt or feel the same way. In the old way, you let go a blast and everyone runs for cover, prepares for defense, and comes out as an eternal bomb shelter armed and ready to fight back or with his hands up in surrender, ready to be your prisoner, your victim. Is that what you really want? Most of us slip into favorite expressions and favorite words. Check out your own special vocabulary. There are some things you're saying to people that are better left unsaid. There are certain words you should drop. For example, crazy is not a very good word. Neither is abnormal. It's really interesting how psychiatrists and psychologists dislike using labels. The textbooks are having trouble defending normal and abnormal. When describing psychological problems, the books and experts use words like maladjustment, disoriented, etc. Crazy is a word for which is all too often used to belittle or ridicule. We use it in the title of this book to inject a sense of humor when looking at the behavior, not to put down the reader or people who have serious personal problems. In certain countries, two men can walk down the street holding hands and go unnoticed. Men kiss each other full on the mouth in certain cultures. In others, holding hands or kissing is strictly taboo. The bikini is acceptable on the beach, but not on Main Street. The low-neck dress is fine for parties, but not for church. A necktie is proper for business, but not for bed. Yet some people dress pajamas to go to bed. Shaking hands was introduced to prove you carried no weapons. Tipping the hat was like lifting the face mask of a knight's helmet for recognition. Lapels on men's coats originated in the flaps, which resulted when you unbuttoned a high-necked military tunic at the neck and several buttons down the front during off-duty leisure hours. So much of our appropriate behavior is a result of similar conditioning. As kids, we did a lot of self-talk. We told ourselves that maybe we'd be rejected at the party or on that first day of school or on that first date. For many of us, we had already formed an opinion of ourselves too. We were phony, stupid, inadequate, inferior, and somehow, someday, someone would know it and we'd be exposed. Self-talk can do that to you. We all have a bit of self-talk, internal dialogue, even now at this instant. You read these words and you're saying something like, yeah, this guy knows me. He's talking to the real me. Or it might be, who, me? This guy is really off base. Or, I wonder if this is how I really think and feel. Whatever your inside voice is telling you, it's self-talk. Tune into it. Listen to it. Don't get upset or worry about what it all means. The first step is just to listen, as you would tune through a shortwave band on a radio receiver. Just listen. The meaning and real motives will come to you as you read this book and as you explore your inner space more. If your self-talk told you that you are the only person in the world so immature or so stupid or so ugly or so incompetent, relax. Already you can see there are hundreds, thousands of people who feel the same way. You may even be a lot better off than you thought. Socrates said that if all the troubles of all the people in the whole world were poured into a big vat and each one of us drew off an equal portion of the misery, we'd prefer to keep what we had than take the new portion. That's generally true for most of us. I feel miserable because I had no shoes, one writer put it, until I met a man who had no feet. Immaturity is an interesting word. It being immature means the urge to stick your finger in the icing or do something naughty. Want to play doctor? Isn't fuck, I fucked that up. That's a weird aside. I'm going to do it again. Immaturity is an interesting word. If being immature means the urge to stick your finger in the icing or do something naughty, want to play doctor? That isn't immature. That's being natural, fun-loving, adventurous, explorative, spontaneous, childlike. Is that so bad? Aren't we too darn sophisticated these days? Oh, there's a time and place for everything. But it's as if we don't have time anymore to be real, to be ourselves, to do what the way down deep inside want to do. To indulge oneself is not also considered good behavior. Gradually, we deny ourselves more and more until we're no longer ourselves. Today we eat, sleep, work, play at activities. Tomorrow we eat, sleep, work, play again. The cycle is repeated day after day, week after week, year after year. The businessman sees the same streets, the same office, the same work. The housewife, what a horrible word, be a homemaker, sees the same house, neighborhood, supermarket aisles. Maybe once in a while, you should deliberately and with malice afterthought be immature. Indulge yourself. Blast off! Perhaps your own self-talk accuses you of not being able to control your emotions. That's true of every one of us, given enough pressure. How many people do you know who would recite poetry if they hit their thumb with a hammer, ruin a medal for an important guest? Oh, fuck. Perhaps your self-talk accuses you of not being able to control your emotions. That's true of every one of us, given enough pressure. How many people do you know who would recite poetry if they hit their thumb with a hammer, ruin a meal for an important guest, or made a stupid social blunder, like unknowingly insulting someone? Very few, if any. In a sudden crisis, feelings flow like Niagara. Know this and be ready for it. Then when it happens, and it will, soon, you can vent your feelings with a sense of humor, laughing at it with yourself, or say things differently or behave differently. You don't always have the same temper tantrums, the same childish behavior. This time we mean childish in a vengeful, destructive, sadistic, or cruel way. For a while, you may have to exert conscious effort, force yourself to behave differently under stress. After all, it is changing a habit, and that requires work. It has been said that to beat a habit, you begin working at it the same way that you would remove the first letter, H. Habit still remains. Continue removing the next letter, A, and a bit of it is still left. Again, remove the B, and it still remains. So it takes effort. Stick to it. Lao Tse, 2,500 years ago, said, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step." Take the step and keep going. About 400 years ago, Shakespeare wrote, "Assume the virtue, though you have it not. And in time, it will become you, and it will become you." There are some things you should not do with emotions. You shouldn't deny them. Mr. X comes home late. The kids track mud through the living room. It's raining, and Mrs. X, trembling with anxiety, says, "Who's upset?" She could have done another no and hide the emotion with, "It really doesn't matter. There are days when nothing goes well." It even sounds phony. It is. She's really upset, but she won't let it out. She's really suppressing the emotion, saying to herself, I won't let this get me down. I won't show him and the kids that it bothers me. I will overcome this all by myself. If emotions are suppressed like this, they don't go away. They may seem to go away, but they're filed away in a dark basement, a cluttered attic of your mind. Someday, with just the right combination of pressure, it's audit time at that mind bank, and you really cash in with interest. Pent-up emotions should be vented as they arise or as soon as possible thereafter. Don't carry around this excess baggage. It is hard to do the venting all by yourself, though it is possible. Some find that active or contract sports, gardening, handicrafts help work it out. But it's better to verbalize how you feel, to tell someone exactly your mood and feelings. This is best done with someone who is clued in, like your contract partner, or a good friend, or a loved one. Sit quietly and explain exactly how you feel. Don't talk about things, the situation, the mechanical details, who did what to whom, but focus on the feelings. Let the tears come. They usually do. You should feel good about this because it's a sure and certain sign that feelings are really flowing and that the venting is actually happening. Men, it's okay to cry. It doesn't mean you're less of a man. It means you're growing up. More human, a full and total person. Real, live, feeling. Being a man or a woman is a role. A person is more than a role. Some people deny and avoid emotions by apologizing for their feelings. Sometimes it's really foolish, like, forgive me for being angry with you because you hit my thumb with a hammer. If you're hit with a hammer, it's quite normal to shout, ouch! With a few more dramatic words thrown in for effect. How do you feel when you're on the receiving end of such a statement? Can you accept a person's need to fly off the handle? You're going to have someone dump garbage on you. You will be able to see through it. Keep your cool and do something constructive with the situation. You can actually meet the person right in the middle of the storm and lead him to the quiet space, that still point, by helping to get all the feelings out. Like, I'm sorry for doing that. I really didn't mean to. I felt that way you feel, and I can remember carrying it around with me for a long time. How can I help you get rid of it? People who really trust each other quite often literally fall into each other's arms and just hold on, quietly and caringly, when feelings get intense. Men have trouble with this due to social conditioning, but they often touch in some way. A quick sideways hug, handshake, or pat on the back. A person who is emotionally upset speaks differently than when calm. Some people talk faster than they do ordinarily. Others slow down. When talking of deep feelings, the tendency is to slow down the rate of speech and lower the voice, sometimes to a whisper. If there is trust, you will find yourself physically moving closer, psychologically as well. Touching becomes more natural. In some ways, ancient cultures knew more about behavior than we. For 2,500 years or more, Taoists have used the yin-yang symbol to teach the nature of the universe, which is in the figure S, which divides the circle into two halves, one black, the other white. The black is the spirit of yin, the mystic female. It is night, winter, the moon, passivity, rest. The white is the spirit of yang, the mystic male. It is day, summer, the sun, action, doing. In the white field, in the yang, there is a spot, a small circle of black, a touch of yin. And in that side of the field of yin, there is a white spot, a touch of yang. So, the Taoists thought, there is some right and the most wrong answer, some good and the most evil, some feminine traits in the most masculine man, some masculine traits in the most feminine women, some beauty in the most ugly, and so on. The yin-yang symbol applies to any thought or feeling which moves from one pole or extreme to another. Love, hate, action, passivity, liberalism, conservatism, right, wrong, intimacy, distance. It can also be applied to normal, abnormal. In terms of the symbol, we can say, as most behavior specialists say today, that there is a tendency towards the abnormal in the most stable individual. There is the seed of normalcy, the seed of one's own recovery and mental health in the most abnormal personality. It follows then that everyone can be saved if we but understand him. It also means for you when you really feel down, for those you try to help when they are down, there is always hope. From all this can come a feeling of deep inner peace, security, serenity, that quiet space, the eye of the storm, the still point. It doesn't mean that you feel perfect. It means that you feel in tune with nature, with life, with your own self, good and bad, strong and weak. It means that you call yourself neither normal nor abnormal. You can only be you. Others will have to tell you in labels, in their own words, who and what they think you are. Normal abnormal is a matter of degrees, not kind. If more and more stress is put on you, if we doubled your work and halved your time, your behavior and time would be abnormal. There are tendencies towards the abnormal in you now, and with some thought, you could identify them. The rest of this book will help you do this. For now, we shall clarify some labels for you. Realize that labels are to be avoided, just as psychiatrists and psychologists try very hard to avoid using them. A person branded schizophrenic in time can behave to match the label, just as minority groups discriminated against in time behave in an inadequate and inferior way. If I treat you as if you are stupid, in time you will behave as if you are stupid. Normal, neurotic, psychotic are superficial labels. It has been said jokingly that neurotics build castles in the sky, psychotics live in them, and we normal people pay the rent. Neurotics are the wishful thinkers, unhappy and troubled, but who are able to live, work, and play according to society's requirements. Psychotics are not here. They're in the castles, away from us, in a world all their own. The normals are the silent majority who have good days and bad days, but who do not need medication or therapy, and usually have never seen a psychiatrist or psychologist. A behavioral scientist could maintain that nobody is normal, or that we are all normal, depending on the criteria, the specifics, and the context. Neurotics are the walking wounded. The major symptoms or chief complaint is anxiety. They have an almost incapacitating degree of depression, fear, guilt, frustration, or anger. Sometimes these are in the form of headaches, excessive eating, drinking, gambling, or smoking, stomach upset, diarrhea and or constipation, skin rash, allergies, and so on. It can be mainly a psychological, such as phobias, compulsive acts, manias, obsessive ideas, or some exaggerated habit or trait. Neurotics know who they are and what they're doing, but it bothers the hell out of them. Psychotics are not here. They're away in a world of their own. The chief characteristic of psychosis is loss of reality contact. They don't know what's really happening. Some psychotics have delusions of grandeur, being Christ, Mary, Napoleon, or delusions of persecution, victim or plot, a conspiracy. The person behaves as if he or she were the person imagined. These delusions are deep-rooted and highly organized. Some persons may have to be force-fed because they are afraid food is poisoned. This form of psychosis is paranoia. Some psychotics have extremely distorted perception, seeing objects and persons change shape. This is schizophrenia, split from reality, which some researchers feel is due to a biochemical imbalance in the brain, perhaps even a nutritional deficiency. There is some evidence it can be genetic, due to a particular gene pattern. Some psychotics have an extreme mood swing from hyperactive anxiety to a crashing suicidal depression, the cycle taking days and sometimes weeks or months to swing from one extreme to the other. This is manic depressive psychosis. How do you know if you need the help of a psychiatrist or psychologist? A rule of thumb is how you feel from day to day in everyday life. If you're feeling worse and worse, not better and better, week to week, month to month, go check yourself out with a trained professional. Other danger signs: confusion with memory loss and inability to concentrate. All this continuing and getting worse. Being suspicious, distrustful, seclusive, secretive, withdrawing, so as to interfere with everyday life, being hostile and belligerent, aggressive and violent, without sufficient reason, and overreacting in this way more and more, an unrealistic dream world optimism, being carried away with unrealistic wishful thinking, feeling depressed most of the time with unexplained crying spells, persistent fatigue, and marked physical and mental changes in appearance and intellect. A sudden and dramatic change in mood, inappropriate emotion, too much, too little, none, paradoxical, and an incapacitating fear or panic reaction out of all proportion to the cause. If any of these behaviors makes it impossible for you to sleep, work, eat, and get along with others, or if behavior is suddenly and strikingly different than before, get professional help. Hallucinations are symptoms of psychotic behavior. Although technically a dream is an hallucination and everybody dreams, but what is meant here is an hallucination experience during waking hours. Hallucinating is seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, or smelling what isn't there. There is absolutely no external cause or reason for this vivid, dramatic, seemingly real perception. Perceived as very real, hallucinations are actually not real. Illusions, on the other hand, are mistaken impressions or misleading sensing based on a real but misunderstood stimulus or object. When you stand on the deck of a ship leaving the pier, and it looks as if the pier is moving, that's an illusion. If you're in the midst of work in an office building and you find yourself on the deck of a ship, that's an hallucination. We all have illusions. Few of us hallucinate. Other common illusions are waterfall effect, where the rocks alongside a waterfall seem to be moving upward, and falling water seems to be remaining still. The car, the train, or the plane you're traveling in seems to stand still and the ground moves. The steering of the rod in a glass of water, or gin, seems bent. With illusions, you really do see, hear, taste, feel, or smell something. But because of the nature of the specific situation, your brain, mind, gets a wrong impression. Dreaming is normal. Recurrent dreams, though, generally mean there's something unresolved in your mind. If nightmares happen often or regularly, or they should be treated professionally. A dream can seem as real as waking hours experience. You are really there. It's really happening to you. Yet you see and hear, you can eat and drink, feel things which are unreal. To dream is normal. To hallucinate is abnormal. With enough stress or shock, you may hallucinate while awake, a waking dream. We are faced once more with the duality illustrated in the yin-yang symbol. This time, dreams, hallucinations, or reality, unreality, daydreaming, reverie, fantasy, wishful thinking, being the tiny dot of unreality in the field of reality. What is the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist? A psychiatrist is always a medical doctor who specializes in the treatment of mental illness. Because they are medical doctors, psychiatrists prescribe drugs. They approach behavior using the medical model, a doctor-patient relationship with the goal of symptom removal and the relief from suffering. If symptoms involve mind-body relationships, are caused by physiological dysfunction or disease, or if the behavior is really exaggerated and possibly psychotic, a psychiatrist would be a wise choice for help. A psychologist is a behavior specialist with 2 or 3 degrees in psychology. Psychologists are not medical doctors, so they can't prescribe drugs. Clinical psychologists often work with and for psychiatrists, giving diagnostic tests, sometimes doing individual and group therapy, or they are in private practice. Generally, psychologists spend more time analyzing the causes of the behavior, rather than immediate relief of symptoms. They also emphasize the effect of conditioning and learning on personality formation and behavior. If the problem is purely psychological, it would be wise to go to a psychologist. Chapter 2. Where are you? Buddha, 500 years before the birth of Christ, said that senses are windows of the mind. You make contact with the outside world, external reality, through your senses. Seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching. These sensory impressions are made and recorded in the brain. Putting together the incoming signals, then processing them in your mind is how you learn. It's also how personality is formed. Buddha described that too. All we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. Sensing is receiving signals from the environment. Perception involves association and integration, running the signals through the mind's databank, then making a judgment as to what you're experiencing. You feel a sharp pain in your right index finger. The finger jerks away by reflex as another signal travels up the arm, through the spinal cord, and into the brain. There it is processed, classified, and judged to be much like a pinprick. Your eyes confirm the judgment. In most cases, we see what's happening as we feel it, but even in darkness or awakening from sleep, the foregoing process would enable us to make an educated guess at what is happening to us. Jean Charcot, the famous French psychiatrist who taught Freud much about the nature and treatment of hysteria, wrote, "We see only what we are ready to see, what we have been taught to see. We eliminate and ignore everything that is not part of our prejudice." And William Blake added, "A fool does not see the same tree a wise man sees." It is very important, then, to exert a conscious effort to sharpen our sensing and perceiving so that we see what's there, not what we want to see. Some of us see truth. Some see only part of the truth. Some never see the truth. If you have a chip on your shoulder, you won't have to travel far and find someone willing to knock it off. Violence begets violence. If you're feeling depressed, you'll see mostly the depressing things. Being sensitive, you'll perceive more than usual painful experiences. Misery loves company. How can this vicious circle be stopped? Even on days when everything seems to be going wrong, there are surely some things which go right. Can you really have a day when everything goes wrong? Try making a list of the good and bad things on such a day. Learn to laugh at and with yourself about the reverses. Share your bad luck with someone. Doing this spreads out the down feelings and so diminishes them. Life can be beautiful. At worst, It's a flip of the coin, happy on one side, sad on the other. And it can't possibly come up tails all the time. If you're depressed, it may be that your depression is doing the thinking, not you. Zen Buddhists teach that in such a case, you should use the depression. When I am lonely and feel depressed, an old Zen master said, I think on deeper truths. Doing so gets you out of yourself, draws you more to nature. Norman Vincent Peale advises us to find a need, then fill it. This can be done by helping others or finding a new hobby or pastime, trying new things, making new friends, expanding your interests, reaching out, growing up. Of course, some pain is a part of daily living. The first of Buddha's Four Noble Truths is that every living thing knows pain. That means some stress, some anxiety is necessary for healthy living. Without some stress, you would have no frame of reference to know when you are relaxed. To know happiness, you must have experienced unhappiness. Dr. Otto Rank emphasized the trauma of birth, that we are born in pain, we die in pain, and we should accept some life pain as unavoidable. It is psychologically unhealthy to enjoy pain or to seek it out, masochism. But some self-discipline is needed to face each tomorrow, to look fate, perhaps even death, in the eye, to suffer through the middle when there is no other way. Everything you ever said or did, everything said or done to you, is locked up in your mind's memory bank. Dr. William Penfield proved this with his experiments. Stroking exposed portions of the brain with the many electrodes. In every case, patients vividly recalled past events, down to the most minute details. It is important, then, to be real, so that you will say and do what you really think and feel. This requires clear perception for what's happening in the here and now. Homer and Jethro, two mountain folk on their first train ride to the big city, bought their first banana from a vendor. Neither of them had the courage to take the first bite. Finally, Homer took a bite. At the precise moment, the train went through a tunnel, and everything went pitch black. Homer said fearfully. You ain't here yet, Jethro? Jethro cautiously replied, No, I ain't. Well, don't, Homer said. I just took a bite and the darn thing blinded me. Homer accurately received the sensory signals, but his mind's data bank made a perceptual mistake. Sometimes, from fear or fatigue, we see what we're most afraid of seeing. When we are upset, we are suggestible, like Homer and Jethro, two mountain folk on their first train ride to the big city, bought their first banana from a vendor. Neither of them had the courage to take the first bite. Finally, Homer took a bite. At that precise moment, the train went through the tunnel, and everything went pitch black. Homer said fearfully. You eating yours yet, Jethro? Jethro cautiously replied, No, I ain't. Well, don't, said Homer. I just took a bite and the darn thing blinded me. Homer's accurately received the sensory signals, but his mind's data bank made a perceptual mistake. Sometimes, from fear or fatigue, we see what we're most afraid of seeing. When we are upset, we are suggestible, like imagining someone breaking into the house when we are alone, afraid, and hear creaky noises. We seem to fear the worst whenever we're in a crisis situation. The solution is to process incoming sensory signals without getting carried away with the heat of the moment, finding that quiet space or going to someone who has that calm state of mind and who can help us attain it. La Fontaine quipped, A fly sat on a chariot wheel and said, What a dust I raise! This is yet another perceptual error. It is also a head trip or ego trip, having too high an estimate of your own importance, power, or influence. The converse is also true. Having too low an opinion of yourself, a low self-concept. To check out these possibilities, reach out to others and get some feedback so that you can work on yourself. There are 4 obstacles to clear thinking: oversimplification, card stacking, prejudice, and myths. Oversimplification is making glaring generalizations, universal absolute statements, words such as always, never, none, everybody, nobody. Bob says everybody's doing it. Barb answers, my body isn't. Bill says, as everyone knows, not everyone does. Bud says, it'll never work. Never is a long, long time. The boss says, that's the way we've always done it. That's the way they said about the quill pens and chamber pots. These are all oversimplifications. Using such statements is to dismiss lightly too great an idea, jumping to a quick conclusion, hip shooting. Card stacking is using a half-truth, slanted information, like playing cards with a stacked deck. Kathy's an unfit mother. She had an illegitimate child. Charlie's a very poor driver. He's had 3 accidents. Claude is untrustworthy. He was in prison for 3 years. Kathy may be a very good mother. Getting pregnant without marriage license isn't a fair test of the quality of her motherhood. Charlie could have had 3 accidents in 20 years, and without knowing the specific details, it usually takes 2 cars and drivers to have an accident. We are not competent to judge his driving ability. Claude could have been a prisoner of war or political prisoner, and without knowing when, how, or why he was sentenced, we can't judge his trustworthiness. Card stacking always withholds some important information, making total judgments using selected, incomplete, negative data. Prejudice is a preconceived notion which may not be based on all previous experience. Prejudice is a preconceived notion which may not be based on previous experience. Dan says, all redheads are fickle. Every redhead he dated may have been fickle, but he can't make a judgment on all redheads from his limited sampling. Dot says, businessmen are male chauvinist pigs. Same faulty reasoning. She doesn't know all businessmen, so her statement isn't valid. Prejudice statements can be heard every day about Catholics, Jews, Indians, blacks, teenagers, kids, dogs, women drivers, policemen, salesmen, etc. Ad infinitum. A common way to slip in the prejudice is with a suitable adjective. Narrow-minded Catholic, pushy Jew, drunken Indian, militant black, irresponsible teenager, noisy or spoiled kids, messy dog, dumb woman driver, overbearing policeman, slippery salesman. Prejudice is making a judgment on someone's behavior based on hearsay, opinion, or personalities, real or imagined. Myths are old wives' tales or superstitions. Too many people still believe them. Ed says, never trust a person who can't look you straight in the eye. There are many shy people who are trusting and need to be trusted, but tend to look down or away and don't feel comfortable maintaining eye contact. Edith says, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. People aren't dogs. Besides, Edith, how many old dogs have you actually tried to teach? Egbert says, a miss is as good as a mile. Does that mean we should all stop trying? Mistakes are the price tag of progress. Myths and superstitions get in the way. There are obstacles to realizing your full potential. They prevent you from being yourself. They are excuses not to think for yourself, avoiding responsibility. Besides these obstacles to clear thinking, there are certain defense mechanisms which prevent us from seeing the whole truth. Obstacles to clear perception. How many of these do you use? How many can you recognize in those around you? Fred, thumbing through nude photos in men's magazines, says that teenagers today do as they darn well please. They dress the way they want, live the way they want, and they even love the way they want. Fred is projecting. He's really saying he'd like to try a little of that teenage lifestyle himself. He is projecting onto someone or something else his own innermost thoughts and desires. Gladys said she doesn't know whether to recommend Betty for promotion because Betty had a little too much to drink at the office Christmas party last year. Gladys is using isolation, judging the total person based on one isolated incident or single trait or habit. Harry's buying a new car. He says his old car, 3 years old, burns a lot of gas, will need new tires and a brake job soon, and that you never know what'll wear out next. Total cost of fixing up the present car, $300. Net cost of a new car, $1,500. Harry wants a new car. It's an emotional impulse and not a reasoned judgment. He is rationalizing or making excuses for doing what he really wants. The boss gave Ida a hard time. Ida can't fight back, so she went home and was nasty to her husband. He landed on the kids. The kids kicked the dog harassed the cat. That week, the mortality rate among neighborhood mice skyrocketed. This is displacement hostility. To displace hostility onto a safe, convenient target. Jane uses the silent treatment against her roommate whenever they have an argument. Her roommate gets spiteful, throws things around, and ridicules and belittles Jane. Jim cusses a lot, just about every third word. Joy runs to her room and has a good cry, sitting in the dark whenever her feelings get hurt. All these are forms of regression, childish behaviors learned in an early age and found satisfactorily in the past. These people haven't learned to use more mature behavior. In addition to these defense mechanisms, there are 3 general reactions to stress situations: flight, fight, or fright. A flight reaction is to flee, escape, withdraw, deny, or avoid. You can flee by changing the subject or changing your job. Fight is to meet the other person head on, sticking to your guns. You can overdo this by using more than reasonable force, overkill, or moving in to counterattack. Fright is a fear reaction, when you cop out by submitting, yielding, choosing to do nothing, or paralyzed with fear, you cower in the corner of your mind, hoping it will all just go away. And this brings us to fear. Everybody's afraid of something. Some of us are more afraid of certain things than others. What scares me might bother you at all. Fear, too, is a matter of degree. Afraid of the dark? How dark and for how long, you should ask. Afraid of being all alone in silence. Extensive research in sensory deprivation and sensory overload tells us we are very sensitive to what is happening around us. Sensory deprivation. Experimental volunteer subjects have been deprived of sensory input by having arms and legs padded and lying in beds in soundproof rooms with subdued lighting. They had illusions, then hallucinations within the first 24 hours. These experiments show that our senses function like a radar set, continually giving multisensory contact with the environment. We need the sensory feedback or we freak out. Sensory overload. Volunteers were bombarded with light and sound in the form of about 24 randomly firing 150-watt floodlights and taped sounds of up to 100 decibels. Results? Illusions developing into hallucinations, disturbed time sense, otherworldly feelings, loss of control, discomfort, and poor reality contact. These results are similar to those of sensory deprivation experiments. Unrealistic, exaggerated fear can sap you of energy, which could be better used elsewhere. Such fear is a needless waste of energy. It also occupies your mind and can, in time, become a part of your personality. It will be helpful to you to make up a checklist of what you are most afraid of. When you have completed the list, go over it again and score your degrees of fear from 1, concerned, to 3, very much afraid. Here's a list of common fears. Rats, mice, bats, snakes, horses, cats, the dark, storms, stage fright, night noises, lightning, machinery, heights, deep water, dentists, crossing bridges, bulls, electricity, dying, explosions, acids, floods, being sick, blood, doctors, nurses, airplanes, guns, gas, choking, smoke, being alone, spiders, mad dogs, worms, surgery, burglars, the mentally ill, fires, drunken men, being naked, sudden noises, women, big men, foreigners, nude men, poisoned food, dirt, big black bugs, flying insects, crowds, childbirth, being arrested, being stared at, being mutilated, policemen, soldiers, corpses, extreme pain, being unpopular, having a heart attack, drowning, making social blunders, going blind, bleeding, being beaten, losing control of yourself, getting cancer, being laughed at, illness of a loved one, vomiting, failing in school, being embarrassed, venereal disease, being murdered, having sex, being crippled, being homosexual, criminals, going crazy, hypodermic needles, slow death, germs, getting fired, freezing to death, auto accidents, burning to death. A phobia is a fear out of all realistic proportion, which makes it impossible for you to live normally, work, eat, sleep, enjoy activities with others. It is an incapacitating or near panic reaction to a person, place, thing, or specific situation. The more common phobias involve high or enclosed places, bridges, tunnels, open spaces, or crowds. Some phobias seem symbolic, based on insecurity or low self-concept. Fear of falling is a fear of failing. And some involved punishing self or others. I can't go out, so we can't go out. Some people get over their phobias by forcing themselves into phobic situations, but this can also reinforce the fear, making it worse. If your phobia is severe, it is best to consult a trained professional. Don't suffer in silence. There are methods of systematic desensitization, including hypnosis and behavior modification, which can relieve your anxiety and help you overcome phobia. Modern technology has brought with it a new set of anxiety-producing situations. They might be called the space-age neuroses. Break-off phenomena is a perceptual disturbance which happens just at the moment you would ordinarily doze off to sleep. A twilight feeling similar to having a hypnotic trance. Hypnotic trance. It can overtake you while driving alone over a monotonous highway. Flyers get it at high altitudes. They will aim for the stars or open space, as if the sky was land and the land the open sky. Scuba divers get it deep beneath the sea. They will swim toward the bottom of the sea thinking it would be the surface. The cabin fever of snowbound explorers and convicts going stir-crazy are similar perceptual disturbances. Key factors in break-off phenomena are being tired, alone, and being subjected to some kind of monotonous sameness. Endless highway, open sky, miles of snow, constancy of the ocean depths. To prevent break-off phenomena while driving, have someone with you. If this isn't possible, keep the radio on as loud as a companion's voice would be. Stop regularly for a coffee or smoke break, or just stop the car safely off the side of the road and walk around a bit. Some people drive with their shoes off. The vibration helps keep them awake. Preventative measures: get enough rest, even if you arrive later than planned. Jet syndrome, or jet age blues, is a feeling of fatigue and lassitude from jolting your internal time clock, circadian rhythm, by flying through one or more time zones within one day or night. It happens only when you race the sun, never on the north-south journeys, although fatigue from a long flight in any direction can be quite tiring. Your eat-sleep cycle is disturbed, and it can take up to a week to recuperate. Antidote: don't plan a heavy schedule the first few days after arrival. Don't fight the new time schedule. It's going to be there the whole time you are. You have to do the adapting. Maybe a mild sedative or tranquilizer will help you get to sleep that first night. Automation neurosis happens when computers seem to take over the business operation of the interest of greater efficiency. It begins in the mind of the worker as anticipation anxiety, rooted in concern about job security and fear of change. This leads to alienation. They don't care about people. Impersonalization follows: anxiety, irritability, and job dissatisfaction. Morale drops. The person who adjusts best has traits similar to the computer. Some psychologists call him Automation Man. Antidote: more human relations courses, seminars, and workshops to improve interpersonal relationships on the job. Summing up this chapter, to sense and perceive clearly and accurately requires that you see with a third eye and hear with a third ear. It is to see, hear, taste, smell, touch what's really there in everything you say and do. It is to have a truly scientific attitude. Researching back to ancient Greece, Plato said, "Science is nothing but perception." What you are is the result of everything that has happened to you. Fuck. Chapter 3. Where have you been? What you are is the result of everything that has happened to you from conception through birth, infancy, childhood, the teens, to the present. It's a long, hard journey, one that marks you at every stage. What you are shouts so loudly, Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, that I can't hear a word you're saying. Personality is complex, based on your total life experience. Everything that ever happened to you, real or imagined. Personality is simple because there is a unity to it, a unified consistency, a hanging together that makes you identifiable to your friends. Friends are very perceptive. How many times have you been told, or have told a friend, "You don't seem to be yourself today"? Gordon Allport described personality as a unified complex. Unity amid diversity, a mixture of ingredients like a cake batter. The finished cake being the personality. Self-actualization, realizing your full potential, is the icing. Zest for living is the candles. Love the candle flame. personality is the totality of your behavior, mind and body, thoughts and feelings, habits and attitudes, values and motives, fears and emotions, goals and expectations. It's all of you. The first ingredient in your personality cake is hereditary. The first ingredient in your personality cake is heredity, formed at the moment of conception. It's like being dealt a hand of cards. The cards consist of such things as sex, race, natural color of hair and eyes, characteristic skeletal frame, tendency towards a specific body build, height and weight, potential, motor skills and dexterity, nervous system reactivity and sensitivity, stress threshold, overall resistance to disease, native intelligence, aptitudes, and instincts. Hereditary factors can influence behavior. Go back over the list of hereditary traits. Check yourself out. Have you adjusted to your cards? They are the raw materials you were born with. You should understand them, accept them, adjust to them, and use them in such a way that you can continue to grow into the best possible you. The second ingredient in the personality cake mix is environment. And it starts before birth, in the environment of the uterus, and continues until the day you die. It is your total life experience exclusive of those hereditary cards. If heredity is the cards dealt at conception, environment is the card game. The breaks, the road of life. It includes your relationship with people, parents, brothers, sisters, friends, relatives, teachers, employers, co-workers, neighbors, the opposite sex. And it includes experiences, being born, infantile dependency, early childhood, number of brothers, sisters, and your sequential position with relation to them, the home and neighborhood, number of playmates, your age and sex, school experiences, age at first date and sexual experiences, and the effect of all of these, your choice of career, work experience, choice of husband, wife, the marriage situation, and habits, hobbies, religion, and personal values. Heredity is nature, God-given. Environment is nurture, man-made. Heredity is the natural what of personality. Environment is the external how. To help you understand this difference, imagine that you are talking to a stranger on the phone whom you've never met. You're arranging to meet this stranger at the airport. Describe yourself. Take a few minutes right now and do this. Writing it or tape recording it will help. Don't read on until you've finished. Now look over your list, or listen to it if taped, and check how many of the distinguishing traits are hereditary and how many are environmental. Whatever you said you'd be wearing would be environmental. A special kind of behavior would also be environmental, but height, weight, hair, and eye color, these would be hereditary. How much of your personality and behavior are based on the traits you've listed? Why did you list them in the way you did? Did you leave any obvious traits out? Why? A helpful way to get in touch with your self-concept, how you feel about yourself, and your present stage of personal growth is to draw a picture which represents your life from earliest memory to date. Get a large piece of paper, about 2 by 3 feet. Use colored crayons or watercolors. Sit and reflect before you begin. How do you picture your life? Would it be in an abstract form or landscape? What colors come to mind to best describe it? What about light and shading? The picture should depict what you consider important traits and significant life phases or incidents from your earliest memory to the present time. Let it set for a few days. Then study it and narrate into a tape recorder or write a description. After another week, review the picture and your explanation. This is best done with a friend or contract partner, sharing impressions and gaining insight and emotional support. Try writing a poem or short essay describing yourself as you would want to be remembered. Perhaps a good title would be Remember Me for... Finally, you can better visualize the total complexity of your personality by writing or taping your answers to the following questions. Take your time. Read over each question before answering. 1. If I could be born again, I'd want to be... 2. When I reflect on my relationship with my mother, I feel... 3. When I reflect on my relationship with my father, I feel... 4. When I reflect on my relationship with my brothers or sisters, I feel... 5. When I reflect on my first days in school, I feel... 6. When I reflect on my childhood, I feel... 7. When I reflect on my teen years, I feel... 8. When I reflect on my first date and first sexual experience, I feel... 9. When I reflect on my religious training, I feel... 10. When I look hard at myself, I feel... 11. I consider my strengths to be... 12. I consider my weaknesses to be... 13. What I look for and need in a friend... 14. I make myself miserable by... 15. When I reflect on my marriage, I feel... 16. If someone asked me who I was without regard to sex, age, career, religion, or political affiliation, I'd say Chapter 4. What are you? You're a complicated piece of machinery. In addition to that sensing, perceiving camera, in addition to that unified complex, personality, you have a body consisting of billions of cells, hundreds of bones, blood vessels, organs, and yards of skin and intestines. It all works non-stop, 24 hours a day for some 70 to 80 years. Do you know any machines that can do that? The computer in your head can still do more than any mechanical computer yet devised, except for mathematical computation. Mind and body, two fantastically complicated machines, so delicately and intimately interconnected that all you need do is will your finger to move, and it moves. Threading a needle can be done with less trouble than it takes with most complex machine. Threading a needle can be done with less trouble than it takes with the most complex machine. You can play chess with a computer, but no computer can also move the pieces, gossip with you, and share your innermost thoughts and feelings all at the same time. People can still do that better. Because of this fine-tuning you have between mind and body, it is possible for continued stress or sudden shock, trauma, to cause body or physical symptoms. When this happens, the malfunction is called psychophysiological, psychosomatic, or psychogenic. The switchboard of your mind gets overloaded, and the overflow goes through a pea-sized junction box, anterior hypothalamus, and an organ system where anywhere in your body is stimulated. This can result in a headache, sweating, stomach cramps, diarrhea or constipation, dry throat, palpitations, need to urinate, depending on which is the weakest link in your body. Mind-body reaction to stress occurs in various forms: insomnia, fatigue, headache, ringing in the ears, dizziness, dry mouth, cold, clammy hands, sweating, hot or cold flushes, skin rash, lump in the throat feeling, palpitations, rapid heart rate, chest tightness, tremors, shortness of breath, itchiness, diarrhea or constipation, full feeling in bladder or rectum, asthma, migraine, ulcerative tendencies, colitis, seizures resembling epilepsy or heart attacks. If you have any of these symptoms, check them out first and fully with a medical doctor to be certain they are not symptoms or side effects from some other condition. If they are not, it is likely they are psychogenic or psychological reactions to stress and should be treated as such. Dr. Hans Seele has researched stress reactions for over 30 years. According to his theory of non-specific stress, the source of stress doesn't matter. It could be the job, the kids, husband or wife, in-laws, friends, money, personal problems. The effect on your body is the same. Seele proved this by autopsying hundreds of animals which died from a variety of studied causes: fatigue, anxiety, toxic overdose of drugs, electrocution, drowning, gas, etc. Regardless of the cause of death, the adrenal glands had enlarged, the stomach lining was inflamed, and the thymus and spleen shrank. The lesson? Too much stress is unhealthy. Yes, you can theoretically die from overwork or overworry. Dr. Seele recommends that you develop an attitude towards life and your work which enables you to work under just the right amount of stress. Not too much, not too little. You need an optimal stress level to function in good physical and mental health. No stress is just as bad as too much. Seele urges you to learn to give up quickly and without hesitation when the tension is too high. When you see you can't win, withdraw quickly, without guilt or second thought, and move on to something you can do well. If it's something that has to be done, move on to something else for a while, then come back to it using some new approach or a more relaxed attitude. Abraham H. Maslow, the father of humanistic psychology, Abraham H. Maslow, the father of humanistic psychology, spent a great deal of time studying normal people. He felt too many studies had been made of people with serious problems of limited help to the vast majority of people without these problems. So he studied self-actualized people, achieving successful, happy people, the kind of people we'd all like to be. He formulated a chart of basic human need levels through which we all pass. It is important to know and understand these need levels because if any of them are not fully experienced, it prevents future healthy development and it exerts an adverse effect on personality and behavior. The first need level is basic needs: food, air, warmth, and shelter. It is the need to be fed, kept dry and comfortable, warm and cuddled. These are psychobiological survival needs, the stage of total dependency. Children who are not shown maternal care and affection, who are not held and cuddled, who do not develop as fully as others. They tend to weight loss, are subject to more childhood diseases, and they generally react more to stress. Marasmus is lack or loss of a mother object. And Dr. Spitz found that many newborn animals deprived of a mother figure actually died. R.D. Lang, the controversial Scottish psychiatrist, feels we should provide more sympathetic care to newborn babies, starting from the way they are handled and treated during childbirth. He feels the umbilical cord should not be cut until the baby starts breathing naturally and spontaneously, and the use of chemicals and apparatus kept to a minimum and used only when absolutely necessary. The second need level is safety, or freedom from external danger, occurring in infancy. It is the need to feel safe and secure, free from such shocking invasions of space as loud and sudden noises. Car backfiring outside, dish breaking, loud phone bell, slammed door. These are unexpected shocks to the nervous system and cause a startle reaction, increase anxiety level, and if repeated enough, a negative learning experience, conditioning the child into hyperreactive, oversensitive state. The third need level is emotional support, or the apron strings stage. This occurs in early childhood and is evidenced by little Johnny following mommy from room to room, constantly underfoot. The child feels safe and secure as long as there is a parent figure nearby. When we behave in much the same way. We get used to our immediate environment, room, house, car, neighborhood, friends. If we are removed from any of these, we get homesick or feel insecure, lonely, ill at ease. The fourth need level is acceptance belonging, and it involves the gang spirit of teenagers who talk a good case about freedom and individuality, but generation after generation have dressed and behaved the same as their fellow teenagers. Of course, people of all ages have conformed in order to belong. In fashions, foods, cars, jobs, religions, clubs, hobbies, etc. It is sharing dependency, status seeking, the need for recognition, approval. Many of us get stuck at this level in a perennial adolescence. The fifth need level is self-actualization, or realizing one's full potential. It is becoming the best possible you, and it is never a finished process. To achieve level 5, you must stand on level 4 and reach up. And to do that, you must pass through all the preceding need levels. Having a baby can be level 5. So can rearranging furniture, painting or papering the walls, writing poetry or a book, learning a new skill, painting a picture, hobbies, sports, job, etc. Dr. Leo M. Kanner, child psychiatrist, stressed that if you can give your children the 3 A's, there is very little chance you can go wrong as a parent. Kanner's 3 A's hold true for husbands and wives and friends as well. His 3 A's: approval, acceptance, and affection. Experience them yourself, share them, give them to others, and it's impossible to do anything negative or destructive psychologically. There are nervous mannerisms which you may have and which are signs or clues of deeper motives or needs. Here is a list of common nervous mannerisms, outward signs of inner anxiety. Check through the list and note the ones you now have or have had. Add any not listed. Is there a pattern emerging? Some common quality? If so, the common elements will help you to identify why you have these mannerisms. When I'm nervous, I fidget, chew gum, bite my nails, chew pencils, giggle, mumble, cry, curse, sigh, blink my eyes, sniffle, shrug, scratch myself, pick my fingers, yawn, squint, clear my throat, grit teeth, whistle, swallow air, hum, moan, sing, pick my nose, pick my teeth, tap my foot, play with ring or watch, finger coins in my pocket, look down or away, play with my hair, touch my mouth or face with my fingers or hand, shake or rock my feet or legs, twiddle my thumbs, stick my finger in my ear, smoke, drink, eat, chatter, pace the floor, doodle, talk fast or slow, or go silent. Chapter 5. So what's normal? By now, you probably have a pretty good idea about who you are and how you got that way. Hopefully, it's now easier for you to get in touch with your thoughts and feelings and talk about them more easily with others. To sense and perceive accurately, to see yourself as others see you, to realize and understand your personality, you must see with the third eye, hear with the third ear. It is to see what's there, not what you want to see, not what you've been conditioned or have learned to see. What then is normal? Normal is a relative term. Normal compared to what? Normal is whatever society says it is. It is to be similar to others, yet dissimilar. You are similar to me because of the same basic survival needs, similar body functioning and overall mental processes we share together. You and I are dissimilar because of your own individual, unique personality. You are you, I am I. Here is the author's advice for awareness and continued personal growth, his prescription for normalcy. 1. Awareness. Wake up. Realize and accept your uniqueness and individuality. There is no one in the whole world quite like you. Proof. Your own distinctive fingerprint, unlike any other. See the me and the not me in all you say and do. Then separate out the real you from the socially programmed unreal you. Own your thoughts and feelings. Accept responsibility for them. Come alive. 2. Caring. Be aware of, accept, and don't be afraid to care about others. Everyone is beautiful in his or her own way. There is an inherent dignity in everyone just by being human. Extend yourself, reach out, assume the risk of showing you care. The reward is proportionate to the risk. You give, you get. You keep only what you give away. Caring is sharing. To have friends, to be a friend. Love. 3. Accepting. Say yes to life. Belong to it. And be with it and in it. Appreciate little things. Sunrise. The bright blue sky. The infinitely varying cloud formations. Rain, snow, wind, grass, flowers, fresh air, colors, textures, the taste of food. Sunset, night, stars, moon. Kindness. Tune in to humanity and nature. Hug the whole world. 4. Reality. See it, feel it, tell it like it is. Neither add nor detract. Observe objectively. Sense and perceive in the here and now. Take a cold, hard look at what is. Let it be. Let it identify itself. Don't rush in too quickly to label or to judge. Be real, be realistic, be. 5. Work hard. Plan your work and work your plan. Set realistic goals. Concentrate. Work with measured pace toward them. Will it happen and will it to happen and it will happen. Be decisive, firm, courageous. Self-discipline is still a virtue. When things go wrong, remember there is still point. When things go wrong, remember there is a still point, a quiet space in the eye of the hurricane, the center of the storm. Find it, stay in it. Let the storm blow over you, not through you. Hold on. You have a right to be here, a right to be. 6. Play hard. Loosen up, relax, have fun. Be a kid again. Do dumb things. Enjoy, laugh, be silly, wander, wonder, be natural, spontaneous. Let your curiosity and spirit of adventure lead you for a change. Smile more. Be of good cheer. It's contagious. Play. 7. Grow. Stretch, reach up and out. Become the best possible you. Look back at where you were before you read this book, where you were a year ago, 5 years ago. Look forward to what you want to be and dare to become that person. Try new things. Grow up. Don't just grow old. Blossom. Become. 8. Be patient. Achieve without pushing the river. All things arrive in their own good time. Feel for the yin and yang balance, a measured pace, moderation, the middle way. Know when to do, when to hold, and when to let go. Know when. 9. Transcend yourself. Reach for something greater than yourself, beyond yourself, peak or oceanic experiences, a unifying philosophy. Achieve this by being more reflective, insightful. Lose yourself in big ideas like nature. There's a whole universe out there that's waiting for you to discover it. Love, to get it, keep it, give it away. Truth, yours, mine, ours, its, theirs, whose. Beauty, day, night, you, me, us, nature. This is to achieve the peace that surpasses all understanding. 10. Pass it on. As you grow, lend a hand to others along the way. Life is a mission, not a career. Living is giving. If this book has helped you, why not pass it on to someone who might also appreciate it? Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can. John Wesley, 1748. Albert Schweitzer, quite an explorer of his own life space, summed up his own personal quest. The whole idea behind this book, behind and beyond caring and sharing. Open your eyes and seek another human being in need of a little time, a little friendliness, a little company, a little work. It may be a lonely and embittered, a sick or awkward person for whom you can do something, to whom you can mean something. Perhaps it will be an old person or a child, or else a good cause that needs volunteer workers. Do not lose heart, even if you must wait a bit before finding the right thing, even if you must make several attempts. None of us knows what he accomplishes and what he gives to humanity. This is hidden from us and should remain so, although sometimes we are allowed to see just a little of it, so we will not be discouraged.